New Zealand Tech Podcast, the voice of the tech community, proudly supported by Umbrella Connect. Greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. We are at episode 495. I'm your host, Paul Spain, and with me today, Gregory Hutana. How are you, Greg?
I'm very good, thanks, Paul. Good to be here.
Now, for those that don't know you, where do you fit into this big wide world of tech?
I think this is my fourth season. I call them seasons at Rural Technologies. I'm the services manager here, and I just work with the clients and directly and indirectly just to make sure we get the outcomes for them that we need. So it's very exciting. Great.
Well, always good to have your perspectives on the show, Greg. Now, this week, first of all, I want to thank all our existing show partners who make the New Zealand Tech Podcast possible. Sumo Logic, Vodafone, Spark, Vocus, HP, Samsung, and Gorilla Technology. But this week, we're also very, very pleased to be able to announce that we have a new lead partner, Umbrella Connect, who are right now have just launched their new multimedia platform online at umbrellaconnect.com. It's great to have them as a partner for the New Zealand Tech Podcast as they get behind improving the level of local content that's available around technology in New Zealand. So welcome aboard Umbrella Connect. And we'll dive in more with them likely next week on our next episode. But this week, let's dive into the news of the week. First up, really fascinated to be reading about a company called Relativity Space, and this is a company who are really focusing on 3D printed rockets. Now, we already know Rocket Lab here in New Zealand have been 3D printing their Electron engines, but what Relativity Space have done, and they've been founded by engineers who are ex Elon Musk SpaceX and Jeff Bezos Blue Origin. So, two big tech titans, both with space exploration companies. And some of their I guess very capable engineers have worked to launch Relativity Space, their first rocket, Terran 1, and their goal is for every part of that rocket, from the engines to the fuselage, the propellant tanks, to be 3D printed. So they really bring down the amount of manual work that's required to produce a rocket, and they're doing this with their own 3D printer. They call it Stargate. I think this is phenomenal. Look, 3D printing, Greg, I know you've had a fair bit of experience sort of dabbling around with 3D printer technology. We've talked in the past a bit about HP's 3D printers that are at a bigger commercial scale than most of us would get to play with, and then there's that sort of next level of devices, and some of them work with I guess starting with a say a solid piece of metal, and they're not it's not really a 3D printer as such, but it basically ends up with what you want, and then you've got varying 3D printing machines. And look, I think it's very, very interesting to see this technology make its way into such a cutting edge industry as the space industry, and it leaves me certainly curious what sort of like this one, like Relativity Space, can put on the existing players. And of course, we know that there are dozens and dozens of companies that are working to get into space, but right now there's really only a handful of countries and of companies that are able to launch into space. So, I imagine this is going to stir things up, Greg.
I think it's stirred up anyway. I mean, it's just been explosive, isn't it? In the last 10 years, suddenly space is, back on the cards, and there's hardly a conversation around space in the early 2000s because, everyone's so worried about everything else. But not only space, but also around, reusing the tools, so not just, one flight, that's it, it's all over, you've used all that resource and it's no longer functioning. So, I mean, the whole space is just fascinating. And 3D printing is just a part of that whole, it's now common conversation in regards to rockets, which wasn't the case before Rocket Labs, really. But obviously they've led the way in that space.
Right.
And
incredible. Peter Beck's done an amazing job.
Jumped onto it and adapting it to their own kind of, approach and needs. But, it's fascinating, absolutely.
Now, the announcement that triggered me to come across this information is that Relativity Space now have a second launch site. So, they're obviously, really working at pace to get geared up, as a business that can compete in this area. Now, their game is certainly on the bigger scale than what we've seen from Rocket Lab. So they're talking about carrying loads of 12 up to 1,250 kilograms. Now, if they can do that at the price they're talking about, which is around $10 million US, that's pretty impressive. We compare that to Rocket Labs, and I'm just trying to remember what the weight is that they can usually carry in terms of a load. I think it's around 150 kilograms. So we're really talking here a dramatically bigger load that they can carry. That's more in the direction of what SpaceX would take up with a Falcon 9. But in terms of the actual what's the word I'm looking for? The costing, we've heard that Rocket Lab charge, I think, sort of the maybe $5 to $6 million US for a launch. Here, what we're talking about is a much bigger payload, and maybe only twice the price. So, we're going to have some interesting challenges, right?
Yeah.
Because they would be able to take up a whole lot more items, payloads, satellites. But of course, part of what Rocket Lab is playing on is this ability to launch very quickly, right? To be able to do very regular launches. They've talked about being able to, do a launch potentially as often as every 72 hours. They have the 3 launch sites now. One of them, 3 launch pads, two launch pads, here at Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand, and then the US one as well. And of course, we've just talked about, I think it was last week, around how their cycle is speeding up. So we talk about roughly 3 weeks now from one launch to the next. And look, what I don't know, and it's going to be fascinating to see, is how this lowering in cost will change the game, right? We already see SpaceX putting their internet satellites up and putting hundreds of those up in space now. But if anybody can put something up in space for
and eventually it gets to the point where, people will be doing it as a hobby. What do you want to put up in space? Oh, yep, let's do it. It's only a couple of grand to put something up in space. I don't know when or if we're going to get to that point.
I mean, okay, it can send up that much in weight, but actually all I need is one of mine to go up. I don't need, I don't want to take on to a multitude of others and be waiting for that launch stage.
Yeah, wait for them all to line up.
I was mindful of, a year or so ago, we had a gentleman in here from Pacific talking about the satellite they needed to put in space.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't want to put 10 in space, they just wanted to put one.
Yeah, and they had to go, with SpaceX on, they went up on a Falcon 9, but of course there were other things that were going up on that launch, and the numbers for Falcon 9, I think their launches were originally in the off the top of my head, sort of heading in the direction of $100 million US dollars, and I think those figures have probably come down now, but it is interesting just to see these things changing, to see the amounts moving. Now, so the Falcon 9 payload, I'm just having a look. I'm seeing various figures here without sort of delving in, and it looks to be quite a bit more. Are we talking? Yeah, so certainly theirs is a step up, but I won't delve into that without doing a bit more reading, because there's a lot of figures there around potential payloads, and even the Falcon Heavy potential payload to Mars of 16,800 kilos. So yeah, interesting times anyway. So yeah, great to see that happening. And then the other story in the last week was SpaceX planning seaborne spaceports for their Mars missions and hypersonic flights. Now, yeah, this is certainly, I guess, real news to me. I never thought of this happening before, although SpaceX have been landing some of their rockets for reuse back, onto floating platforms. But the idea that you can maybe avoid some of the launch challenges, which in the US it's actually quite hard to organise a launch, because you get all the air traffic away, and there's so much going on in the air in the US as it is generally so many flights. I'm sure that's still reduced a lot during this sort of era of COVID, but it is quite a challenging thing, and hence why Rocket Lab launching here from New Zealand, there's not much sort of flying past or near the Mahia Peninsula. Very easy for them to walk across. That's about it. So yeah, worry about a sheep or two. But this idea of basically having your launch pads on the ocean, I see that could be really groundbreaking. And yeah, the idea, they're talking of potentially hypersonic flights as well. So that could be kind of cool, being able to catch a flight from a floating port near Auckland and take a hypersonic flight to New York and be there an hour later or something. That could be kind of cool.
You have to say, look, you don't have to love the Americans, but man, they do things on a mega scale. Nothing's off the cards, and when they go for it big. It's just incredible to, you'd think they're starting to peter out about now, but there's obviously individuals in that nation that still are reaching for the stars, literally.
Yeah.
So, nothing would surprise me if what's going on. And obviously being led by, people like Elon Musk, and I was reading on the weekend about the Bezos's company, and they'll say, let's see who wins this battle, because one's got a ton of bucks to throw at it, and the other one has just got initiative and obviously desire and, all those
Well,
things.
well, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you look at Blue Origin that Jeff Bezos has founded, and their stuff looks really cool. They don't have as many runs on the board, and certainly don't get anywhere near the publicity that SpaceX gets, and in part because of Elon's role. And of course, Elon isn't, as you say, just throwing money at it. He's the chief engineer at SpaceX as he is at Tesla. So a pretty smart cookie, I think it's fair to say. And look, as is Bezos, but and as tends to happen with these people, they get a lot of flack for things as well. Now on to Microsoft permanently closing down all of their retail stores around the world. Initial reports suggested that maybe there were going to be some left open in Sydney, London, New York, and at the HQ in Wellington, but clarification has come through that they are permanently closing all of those stores. They are going to leave those four previously mentioned locations open to be turned into experience centres. So this is an interesting one. I've been to numerous Apple stores in different countries. Microsoft then really followed in Apple's footsteps to launch their own retail stores, but of course Microsoft is such a different company to Apple, and really Apple's retail stores quite groundbreaking in their approach. Gave them complete control of the retail experience. We've never had one here in New Zealand, nor a Microsoft store, but
I went to one in China and I could not get in or out of the place.
Wow, that was the Apple store.
Apple store.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like it, to be fair.
Yeah.
And the people were leaving that store with multiple bags. Now, in our lifetime we'd be lucky to leave an Apple store with any product in a lifetime, because they're expensive and they're the top of the shelf, if you will. That's how it's been sold, that's how it's been promoted, and that's the facts, right? People believe it and they love it, but people were leaving that store in Shanghai with multiple different types of products. And it was just incredible. Well, now that was before COVID and what have you, but it was still an amazing experience to be in the throng of it all.
Yeah.
It's not something we experience a lot in New Zealand because we just don't have the numbers, but it's still
right.
very fascinating.
Yeah.
That Apple had established such a, just a desire for their product, really. And that was on a Monday. It's not like it was a late night shopping or anything. It was just a normal day.
Wow.
So they do an amazing job of that stuff. So.
Yeah, they do. And I thought Microsoft was onto something with their stores when they first opened. It seemed like a great way to put out there, particularly to the consumers who wouldn't have had a chance to get hands-on with the products. But maybe the Microsoft store has had its sort of heyday. It served its purpose to promote the Surface products that Microsoft sells, and in terms of the Surface Pro, the Surface Book range, and look, they had a broad range of things. Of course, Microsoft had this the Microsoft Phone operating system also at the time when those stores were going. So they had a lot to push. There's of course Xbox there, which is very much a consumer play, and there is, you could see there's still a role. There was still a role for the stores up until this point, but I'm sure they've looked at it and evaluated it and decided that it just doesn't make sense. Certainly not in the current situation. So where malls were opening up in the US, the Microsoft stores weren't opening, and people were wondering, well, what's going on? When are they going to get around to it? And basically it's good night to those Microsoft stores. And look, they'd put some serious money into the stores. They had this sort of video wall that would basically loop right around the outside of or the inside walls of the Microsoft stores generally. And if I remember correctly, I mean, that was just basically large screen TVs end to end to end to just a continuous sort of video wall, but dozens, like, a fairly expensive fit out, one might imagine. So so they're all shutting down. So it'll be curious to see if that has any impact at all on their sales. I wouldn't imagine it would be anything at all noticeable, and hence why they've been able to go ahead on that basis. Now, Microsoft also attracting a little bit of attention in the technology sector around their threat protection software, which is interesting to see. And this is the software that I guess traditionally we've looked at as antivirus software, and as time's gone on, we've seen the rebranding of antivirus to endpoint protection. There are varying capabilities that different vendors have put into their antivirus or threat protection platforms, but Microsoft seems to be really, really committed to this endpoint, their endpoint protection play, and it's being built into their 365 offering. And look, it's pretty interesting to see that what started out with Microsoft offering for Windows the Windows Defender, which was basically free antivirus software for Windows. That put a bit of pressure on the makers of antivirus software because they were having to compete with free. And look, there's been some free antivirus software around for a while, but it was free and it was right there with Windows when it came out. So it started becoming harder for the software vendors to sell their antivirus type software. But of course, in the business and the corporate world, most organisations aren't happy with what you get in a free product, right? And so that certainly left plenty of room for the corporate endpoint security, antivirus, next gen AV software, where organisations need a level of reporting, a level of control. They want to know if somebody gets hit and so on. And Microsoft have been working incredibly hard to position themselves in a place where they get taken very seriously as far as that endpoint protection is concerned. And so what we've seen is that they've landed in this position over time and through investment. We're looking at recent Gartner Magic Quadrant, which many will be familiar with. This one I'm looking at is from August 2019, where Gartner basically highlight who's at the sort of the top end in terms of their ability to execute and deliver the very best offerings, and who's at who are the most visionary companies. And according to their most recent chart, CrowdStrike was the only company considered more visionary than Microsoft in endpoint protection. And in
That's
terms
pretty good kudos, really.
yeah, I mean,
When you consider everything else they do, and yet they've really made that a focus, and obviously rightly so, because they've been in that space for a long time. But it's interesting because in our modern world, we need that protection, and it doesn't need to be sexy, right? And that's where Microsoft works very well, because all we need to do is be reliable and to do its job. And we don't need all the fanfare. We just need to know that that's what it's doing. Quite opposite. When you think, Microsoft closing its stores down, for most businesses that would be the end of business, right? Yeah. Because they need that kind of outward focus to be calm. But of course, in the business world and in people's home environments now, which is becoming, more secure, and they understand the need suddenly Microsoft's right in there. It's current. It's right at the top of its game. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken them some time to get there, and then an ability to execute. Microsoft sits at the top of the stack. So this is very interesting. Symantec showing not too far behind them, followed by Trend Micro, and then you've got a bunch of others, and those that sort of coined the term, the next gen AV in terms of Carbon Black and Sentinel One, and a few other companies. So very very interesting just seeing that landscape and the confidence that the company like Gartner, who are pretty well respected as analysts, would put that sort of a stamp on what Microsoft are doing. And I guess the most recent news is that their software coming to Linux and also to Android and even iOS and the iPhone. So I'm not quite sure how that plays out in the iPhone and no doubt iPad area. But it seems like Microsoft are not the company they once were, where it was all about delivering something good on Windows, and they didn't care too much about the other platforms. They just seem 110% in on being available everywhere where there's a sizable market share, and Linux seems to be growing in importance for them from numerous perspectives. Now on to a pretty interesting one that caught my attention was that Olympus basically giving up on their camera business, and they're selling it off, and it's actually being acquired by the same company that bought Sony's laptop division, the Sony Vaio products, and company called Japan Industrial Partners, which is rather interesting. Now that transaction happened on the Sony Vaio laptops, and I think they made PCs as well, but we generally didn't see the PCs here in New Zealand. That is a product that we really, it may not even be available in New Zealand now. If I recall correctly, after that acquisition, Japan Industrial Partners really moved to focus on the Japanese market. So it's going to be interesting just to see how this one progresses. Wal Reed, who's been on the show before, I know has been working with Olympus in the New Zealand market. So I'll try and get a little perspective from him on what that means. But that may mean a little bit less competition when it comes to cameras, and they focus very strongly on the micro 4/3 format of cameras, which Panasonic do as well. So we'll see how that one.
Did any of them survive? That's the question. Very difficult.
Yeah, well, there's only room for so many players, isn't there?
Now watches as a status symbol. It's something you wear out of desire, not out of necessity. Similar with, we always had cameras growing up. That's something you don't need it. You just need your phone.
Yeah.
So they've changed the game.
They have. And look, technology will continue to cause varying levels of disruption, and in some areas it just won't make sense to have a whole lot of players, because 1, 2, 3 companies will really stand out. And of course there is a huge investment that needs to be made to sit at the cutting edge of technology, and not everyone can afford to play that game. And we see that in the auto market as well with cars, where we've seen a massive sort of consolidation of brands, and some of those brands are using technology that's I guess being sold to multiple car brands. So we've got Mobileye, which Intel acquired a few years ago, and there's a whole bunch of brands are doing that rather, and I guess to a degree in their bid to compete with what the likes of Tesla are doing, but they're developing it in-house. And look, Tesla would really struggle if they didn't have the valuation they now have. So that really allows them, and the rate at which they're beginning to sell vehicles, it makes that really stack up well for them. But I mean, even a year ago, there were people asking me, Paul, does it make sense for you to buy a Tesla? That company might not be around for much longer. They could be out of business. And here we are, not that many months later, and they're the most valuable company, vehicle company, car company in the world. So,
but the reason being, Paul, is that the product they've created is absolutely fantastic, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately,
we'll find out in a couple of years if it starts to break down, but for now, it's pretty cool to be sitting in a Tesla, knowing this thing can do more than just sit on the road. It can, it can drive itself. I mean, that's incredible to think in our lifetime that these cars are now driving themselves, not legally fully, but certainly it can do it. Just not allowed to do it yet.
Yeah, yes.
So,
now, talking down that track, there was something, and actually forgot to put it on my agenda notes. Apologies for that, Greg. But Zoox, a company we talked about a few months ago, autonomous driving company based in San Francisco, if I recall correctly. It was announced, I think, Saturday, New Zealand time, that and this had been rumoured for a number of weeks, that they're being acquired by Amazon. So yeah, very interesting to see. They had raised something like $1 billion in funding. Zoox is spelled ZOOX. If you didn't, I did mention a video on this last time we talked about it. There's a very interesting video online showing a Zoox vehicle basically driving through San Francisco. It's a journey that lasts maybe half an hour, possibly an hour. I think it's sped up and running at maybe at double speed, if my recollection's correct there. But it's just fascinating on it, really going through very busy city streets, the way it's able to navigate around, parked vehicles that are sticking out into lanes, completely autonomously dealing with traffic lights and everything else. And of course, this is a similar journey to what Mobileye and Tesla are on, and of course, the Google Alphabet project and Waymo, and Waymo continuing to make announcements as well. I saw something through from them in regards to a partnership with a car company today. So there's all these things going on, but what really stood out about Zoox was they appeared to drive at that Waymo type level, and that they were just going for it, right? It wasn't at the level of Tesla where there's I mean, they have shown off a video where a Tesla does do a reasonable lengthy fully autonomous drive with hands off the steering wheel. But, and in terms of where anyone that owns a Tesla is at the moment, the vehicle is not at that level. Now, the big difference between the likes of Zoox and Waymo is that they require LiDAR, and that technology is very expensive. So, if you look at the at a Zoox vehicle, it is covered in sensors, and that is part of how they're able to achieve what they achieve. Also, the other thing that my understanding of Zoox and of Waymo is they rely heavily on having very, very detailed local data. So it means you can't, if you've got a vehicle with the Zoox technology, let's say it was geared up to be able to drive around San Francisco, we'll take it to Auckland, and it just might not have any data to be able to operate. Whereas, we saw maybe a couple of years or so ago, where or before, I think it was possibly before Tesla had launched in New Zealand, people that had brought a Tesla into New Zealand, it was able to just use what it was drawing off the cameras to be able to navigate on a motorway, to turn a bend, to slow down for traffic and so on. So there are two quite different tracks on that front, and no doubt the artificial intelligence and all the other technology in there will keep improving. So that will be again a fascinating area to watch. Now I've had news through from Vodafone and their entity Farmside, who Farmside of course focuses on delivering rural broadband, connecting those in rural locations around New Zealand. Has been owned by Vodafone for quite some time now, but they've made an announcement regarding delivering uncapped or unlimited data for their customers from midnight to midday on a daily basis. Now they have been doing an offering that has been running with COVID, which was I think from midnight to 9 a.m. So for those working from a rural location, it's like, well, if you can get online during the right time window, then you've got access to that unlimited. And there would have been most people not so busy online, so they were able to make that work. They're now doing it as it's going to be a paid offering from Farmside at $29 per month. And it will be available from when their current offer ends at the late July, 27th of July. So I think we're all looking forward, or certainly those in rural locations or anyone that's on a fixed wireless type of connection. There's that anticipation of when there will be enough bandwidth and so on to make everything unlimited as it is today with fibre connections. So I guess that's certainly an encouraging step. But of course, if they were to do that across the board, then the performance would be heavily hit. And hence why there's a bit of a balance with this, and by charging that $29 a month fee, that also sort of keeps a cap on it. There's it'll be a percentage of customers who are going to sign up, and if that's whatever it is, maybe it's 5% or 10%, 20% that sign up for that, that also helps keep a cap on it, so it doesn't completely ruin everybody's performance. So that's happening. Now the last thing that I wanted to talk about was around the borders being closed, Greg.
Not borders being closed. Don't go there, Paul.
Now
I warned them, people.
You know me in politics, so I generally steer clear. But look, I'm just curious. We've obviously got the government sort of saying, look, the borders need to stay closed to international visitors, and then you've got the National Party saying, hey, the borders should be open, keep in place the 14 day period, so that if somebody is coming in and they're infected, then that's not brought into the community. And of course there's already a level in terms of which we're as a country allowing people to come in, so the America's Cup and film industry, so those people have been allowed in. I wonder, and maybe this is already catered to already, but I haven't heard much discussion around it, is what about supporting the technology sector? Now could be a great time for us to increase some of those, the bring in the highly skilled people. And, we've heard over the years from, a whole lot of tech companies how they struggle sometimes to find the right skills here in the New Zealand market. Now, if we can find people locally or train them up into those roles, then, of course, I'm all for that. Let's use Kiwis wherever we can use Kiwis. But sometimes we need the expertise and experience of people who have been operating in much bigger markets, because we want to export into those markets. People that have been with the top companies in the world, be it, people from SpaceX being employed by Rocket Lab, or be it, top software developers from the Googles and Microsofts and Amazons who, maybe come down here to work with the likes of Xero and other startups. I don't think we should be closing the doors to those people. But, how they balance that and get it right is another thing.
That's
and then you've got the broader picture of education and tourism. I don't think too many tourists would be happy to spend 2 weeks in isolation before tripping around the country, unless they're planning to have a long time around the country. And that's not probably really the focus of this show anyway, to get into those broader discussions. But I do think it's important for our technology sector, if we can take advantage and be the best place in the world to work right now. Wouldn't it make sense to do that? What's your take, Greg?
Well, Australia as an example, my brother had to go home because his wife was quite sick, and it was very difficult for him to get into the country. He had to go through a whole rigmarole, and then he finally got into the country. But it was very locked down, it was very structured.
2 weeks in complete isolation.
But in a very, very nice hotel. And the bill was paid for by the Aussie government. And that's... Now, can we afford to pay for a 5-star hotel for somebody to stay for 2 weeks? I mean, somebody has to pay the bill.
Sure. I mean, I'm not suggesting that the government has to pick up the tab, right?
If we're going to keep our butt open, we have to be a bit more creative. Because we don't have the bankroll, we don't have the mining sector to pay for these things like Australia does. So yes, it is important that people keep coming, but we need to do it in a manner by which we stay safe. And what we've seen recently hasn't worked. So with people just being allowed to wander off.
Yeah. Well, hopefully.
So putting that aside, I think that people continuing to come in is absolutely valid, but we need to manage that like grown-ups for our own sakes and for theirs. Because if they're sick, let's get them healed up. Let's not bring the sickness into the community.
No.
So it's just about managing it and doing it in such a way that New Zealand can afford to roll that out in a manner that's realistic, because we can't keep everyone in 5-star hotels in New Zealand. We just don't have an endless pot of money to kind of dip into. So you probably end up on the backpackers maybe for 14 days.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. The other aspect is, what will be the impact as we see some of our best and brightest Kiwis coming home, because I mean they're all allowed to come home and they are, and some days we're seeing I think between 500 and 1,000 Kiwis return home, and those are people that are quite likely to stay on in New Zealand. So if that happened for 6 months on end, we're talking maybe another 100,000 people, Kiwis returning back to New Zealand. I think there's I don't know exact figures, but I've heard, hey, there's 1 million Kiwis that are outside of the country right now. So if a tenth of those, if a 20th of those, if 25% of those came home, and those may be people that weren't planning to, but they may be at the top of their game, and some of them in tech type roles, or in roles in leadership and director type roles, and so on. Those things could be a real boon for the technology sector as well. So there really is a
and everything's a risk now. We keep our doors completely shut, then we're in trouble. We open them, so you've just got to weigh up what's the least risk but the best return. I suppose just keep it in that kind of context. I mean, it wasn't that long ago the world was concerned with terrorism. We've moved now into the virus because it's here right now. So we've got to keep moving with these things and continue to be, available to change so that we can continue to keep prospering rather than going backward. And we don't be going backwards, but as a
And look,
nation, we can't afford to be.
that talk of change is an interesting one. The technology sector and companies, some of our partners who are, have really focused on becoming more and more agile and be able to move and change more quickly. But government doesn't seem so well geared up for that. So, I hope some of that thinking is going to really permeate into our government going forward. And to do that, I suppose that means some of our smartest people from business and technology getting more involved in government. So I'm not sure quite how we get there, but that would be my hope. All right, well, that's us for this week. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening in to the New Zealand Tech Podcast and for supporting what we do. You can, of course, find us online and across all the major social networks. Now, we have made a little bit of a change with our LinkedIn, so if you're following us on LinkedIn, or even if you're not, we have a new page on LinkedIn, so the old one has been renamed. Come and follow us on LinkedIn. There will be increasing content across those social platforms, and this is part of what the great partners that we have sort of supports, and also supports us doing putting more effort and energy into some of the product testing and reviewing that we do. In recent weeks I've been looking to test out CentraPay's technology, where Coca-Cola has vending machines that now are able to accept payment in New Zealand and Australia via Bitcoin. I'll have to report back on that another week though, because so far my efforts to test that have been thwarted, and
I'd be too afraid to test it in case I gave a whole Bitcoin to the machine.
not had too much luck with it yet, but I'm in touch with them, and we will see. So I guess look, it highlights that doing new things with technology isn't always easy, but it's good to see a Kiwi company there that's really pushing some boundaries and trying to do innovative things with technology. All right, well, that's us. Catch you next week. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
New Zealand's Tech Podcast, the voice of the tech community, proudly supported by Umbrella Connect.